My name's Steve Cooper. I own a company called Aquatic Life Designs. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm going to kind of explain a little bit about what Tanked was like. From the maintenance company perspective, Tank gets a lot of hate, especially how the animals were portrayed. So we did 6 episodes of Tanked. All 6 of these systems are still up, and we still take care of 4 of these. So these were all about 10 years ago that we put these in. They're all running, and a lot of them still have original fish in there. And actually, one of the biggest things that we did is when we met with the client months beforehand, I wrote up a whole waiver and basically said, this is not the recommended way to do this. The tank is going to get cloudy. We're going to have issues with disease. We're going to probably lose some fish. This is, and it's like step by step what we're going to do to deal with all those, that we were going to have to be in there almost daily doing water changes or whatnot. We went to the clients ahead of time and said, this isn't how to do this. But yeah, there was a couple of times where we kind of had to tell them pump the brakes a little bit on some of the things they wanted to do. Yeah, they're like adding rays and sharks to tanks that really didn't work well for them. And yeah, so there's a little bit of that. So to kind of go over what would happen when the show would want to film, they would call us up probably about like 6 months or so before actual filming. And we would go meet with the clientele, take a preview of the space, try to see where there's electrical connections, water connections, where we can put filtration, how we're going to bring the tank in through the building, anything like that. So this was for Highwoods, which is a 3,000 gallon cylinder aquarium. Barrett, one of my partners, he actually took over as manager of LSS now after I left. Right where he's standing, they would later concrete cut in and add plumbing there that went off to a remote filtration room. Kind of funny part with this is that this is 6 months before the actual installation. When they came, I'll show you a different slide, when they come to do the setup and all the filming, it makes it look like Brett and Wade is their first time there. And there's plumbing up through the middle of the ground right where they're standing. That's where we're ready to move the tank into. So about a month before we start really getting everything prepped in the space and getting ready for all the fish and everything, one of the things that I did is I made a saltwater aquarium in my garage. Can't remember what it actually worked out as volume-wise, but it was 8 by 8 and 3 feet deep. So I built that in my garage. They would send all the fish to us ahead of time. Like I said, I have it about a month early. There's the saltwater pond as it's running. If anyone's built a pond with Aquascape Designs equipment, that's what I used for the filtration. And then, yeah, just threw in several hundred fish there. You can see in the skimmer box there's pre-seeded biomedia. So they would send that with it. Sometimes I made my own tanks or whatnot, but we would have pre-seeded media that we could use when the fish came in. And that was one day after we added the fish in there. Protein skimmers would go just insane when we added that many fish in there. You can also kind of see in that first picture, there's a pallet of instant ocean there, and I probably went through that in that month. We would go through 20% water changes pretty much daily. But we would have the fish a month ahead of time, have them all prepped, and then when we did the show, we would have the parameters pretty much match the water that we were adding then. Biomedia would go along with them, and they were kind of already established and ready to go. Probably about a week before filming, you can see underneath that table there's the pipes coming out of the ground that the aquarium was going to get set on top of. So if you go back and watch this episode, you'll see Brett and Wade come in and talk to the clients, and they kind of walk around where those pipes are and make no mention of the fact that it's already set to go. They take their information and go, okay, we're going to go back to Vegas and build the tank, and we'll be back in 3 months. And then we go outside to the parking lot and pick up the tank and bring it in. So whenever they did the episodes, they were usually in town for about 2 days. The one day was putting the tank together, getting it running. The second day was doing all they call them beauty shots, but all the pretty word for the tank. They had an agreement with the Nutra Seawater for the pre-made saltwater. So they pre-shipped 3,000 gallons of saltwater, and we put them in this room off of the side of the main lobby and raised the temperature in that room to 78 degrees and had the water all ready to go. Even temperature was already set ahead of time. When we got to the actual delivery day, this would be usually the day that Brett and Wade actually showed up, or maybe they may have flown in the night before, but usually this was the first time that they had seen anything of the actual location. So usually pretty big tanks that we're putting in. So always had to have rental forklifts put together ahead of time, have all the tools for breaking things out of crates and whatnot. We'd be getting the tanks into place. They would also be doing plumbing all of the filtration, everything just in a matter of hours. It got to be pretty hectic. And usually after we did it, we'd get it enough to get it running and everything looking good. And then typically afterwards, I'd spend the next week or two coming back and rewiring or just adjusting things, making it set up, a lot better for actual functioning. We'd bring the fish over. A lot of times we'd have to rent a U-Haul and bag them all back up, bring them back in. At this point, it's usually around like midnight, 1 or 2 in the morning before we start actually acclimating and getting the fish ready to go in. Brett and Wade have been in the hotel for a couple hours by this point. So yeah, we would be there all night, adding the fish, acclimating them, just having a whole operation going. I usually had like 5 or 6 aquarists with me that we were running through and getting it all ready. Then when it came to reveal, this was kind of the final look for this tank. The initial concept there in the middle, how they actually did it, and then just kind of a group shot of us all when it was done. Immediately afterwards, we would go catch usually about half of the fish out of the tank, and I would take some back to the saltwater pond that I had. A lot of them we would actually just take to other clientele and put them in their tanks. So they were overstocked. There's no way around it. We also took some of them out that were going to stay, but we just kind of wanted to take the pressure off of the system. So we would set up temporary holding tanks at the location and kind of take the load off the main system and put them there for a couple months while we cycled, dealt with any kind of parasites or anything, and then would eventually bring them back after a couple of months. We did do a episode with George with Tanked Revisited, they call it. Brett and George came to Atlanta, and George put out a YouTube video, which I think might be up to like a 1.5 million views at this point. But that was all filmed at that cylinder tank that I was just talking about, the Rugged Ridge tank, and then at a tank that I put in the North Georgia mountains at the wedding venue with the bowling alley. So it's a fun project that we did. It's about a half-hour long video. First 15 minutes is going to those different locations. The last 15 minutes is an interview with Brett talking about how it all went. So it's a good thing to go check out. I think I'm really happy with how it came out. While we were doing that, we were also doing a handful of other installations for them. They didn't like to do a whole lot of international travel, and I love it. So this is a tank that we put in down in Mexico, but this one's another, ATM was great at saltwater fish only, artificial corals. So this was a 1,000-gallon aquarium at a private residence. We put one in a bank in Panama City. And we did a number of them all for Florida and all over. And since then, now Brett has also started up his Brett Raymer Design Group, BR Design Group. We've got a number of projects that are starting for him. Brett, kind of like Tanked, is going to be the face of the company and getting a lot of the business going. The actual designs and installations probably going to be a lot more of me, so I'll probably be in the background and things again, but Brett does have a design group that's starting up. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about how Tank came together. One of the things I always tell you, if you're seeing somebody talk about their aquarium, especially online, always ask them to see what their own aquarium looks like. So this is my office aquarium. I don't know if anybody has any criticisms about that, but I did put a post up on a Facebook page that got about 45,000 interactions on it in a weekend. So a lot of people had opinions on it. It was kind of fun to watch happen. This is my actual home aquarium. It's a 240-gallon aquarium. It's been running for about 5-6 years now. But I got my start as a real little kid. So I was probably like 7-8 years old and saw an aquarium someplace, got in my head that I really wanted to have one, bugged my parents for months to finally convince them to give me this 1-gallon aquarium for Christmas. So that wasn't going to last real long. They also didn't tell me I needed a heater with it, so they actually didn't last very long at all. But that kind of devastated me and got me wanting to be able to recreate the actual environments that the animals came from, and kind of set me on my lifelong quest that I've still been on. In high school, I got a job at the local pet store in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I got featured in a newspaper article. After a few years, I started my own maintenance company. In 2007, I got lucky enough to get a job at Aquarium Life Support Systems. Spent 9 years in life support. I took a couple years off, went to dive maintenance, so doing a lot of the underwater repairs and maintenance. In 2019, they broke ground on a 1-million-gallon shark exhibit, asked me to come back into life support to help get that started up. So I came back as assistant manager and then became manager of life support from 2020 to 2022. Just a quick rundown of what life support is, creating the environment for all the animals. So this is a shot of the control room at the Georgia Aquarium. You can see on the back wall there, we have video camera feeds over the tops of all the exhibits. We're watching the weather really closely. It is a 24/7 operation. I had 4 assistant managers and about 24 technicians under me. I've got a shot here of just a small portion of the Ocean Voyager, our 6.3 million gallon exhibit pump room. And then a schematic of what our control screens look like for the ACS, the system that runs all the exhibits. So that's our coral reef tank. If you're actually at the computer, you can click on the different icons, go into all the settings, change flow rates, temperatures, add water, take out water, or basically anything that you can do. It's very automated. But a part of my duties is running the life support for the aquarium. I was in charge of a lot of the larger projects and the logistics of making all that happen. So I don't know this for sure. I think I've done the world's largest water change. Nobody's told me that they've done anything bigger. So, but our exhibit's 6.3 million gallons, and we wanted to do a 20% water change on it. So works out to be 1.2 million gallons of water. We had to go onto one of our sand filters, cut into the 12-inch plumbing, add a drain off of the side of that. Worked very closely with the city water department. Draining 1 million gallons of salt water into the water treatment plant was not something the city was really excited to have us do quickly. Would have made national headlines, I think, if we messed that up and stopped water processing for the city of Atlanta. Bringing in all the salt water for that, or all the salt for that, was about a $250,000 expense to change out that much salt water. There's a lot of logistics with the tank itself. We had there's normally about 3 feet of freeboard between the top of the tank and the water level. We can't go more than 3 feet below that before we have issues with OSHA as a safety issue. And then there's also concerns with even the acrylic flexing on its seals, that if we drop too much water down, that our big 68-foot window could possibly start leaking or shift. So there's a lot that went into it. It took us 10 days to do it. We started at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, and it finished at 6 p.m. the following Friday. We were draining on an average of 100 gallons a minute for that whole time. We did do the 1.2 million gallon shark tank. Was scheduled to be our 15-year anniversary, open on our 15-year anniversary, which would have been Thanksgiving weekend of 2020. So kind of the concept for it and some of the animals that we're going into, we have hammerheads, tiger sharks, sand tigers, black tips, silkies, white tips. I think there's a handful of others. And then giant school of false pilchards. We did start this out. Well, I took over maintenance, or being the manager of LSS of February of 2020, which in hindsight was a horrible time to take that kind of position on. But it was right when we were getting ready to start commissioning this exhibit. Instead of having my staff of 24 technicians to go all work together and getting the exhibit up and running, it was myself and 3 others. They didn't want us intermixing with the construction crew and back into the main Aquarius population. So it was all I did for several months was just work on this exhibit. It was 60 hours a week or so. It was pretty intense. Being COVID, we had all of our regular construction and safety PPE, and then had to add in the COVID masks, of course. So it got to be kind of ridiculous at sometimes, but it was what it was. Part of the things going into opening exhibit that size, you guys know about cycling all your tanks. So we did that. There's very primary form of filtration in public aquariums is sand filters. So there's 7 of these large sand filters for the exhibit. We took 3 of them and isolated them off from the main system, and we were able to calculate how much food we were feeding the sharks in our offsite holding facility, calculate that down to amount of ammonia, add daily doses of ammonia to these tanks that we added on, and we would circulate those sand filters just along themselves. And had it completely biologically cycled and ready to support animals on day one. So when we filled the exhibit with fresh water and did all of our testing and running to make sure all the pumps run, protein skimmers, heat exchangers, these 3 tanks kept separate, and we commissioned everything without it. The day that we filled it up with saltwater, we added these on. We could add sharks the next day. So it shaved months of time off of our opening time. We actually ended up opening about 6 weeks early. The bonus of COVID was that there was a number of things that the construction company wasn't going to be able to do during open hours. And when we shut down for 3 months, the construction company, we just kind of told them to go nuts, and we were managed to open 6 weeks ahead of schedule. Starting up an exhibit like that is kind of fun with adding in all the salt. So we put city freshwater directly into the tank. It's just run through carbon. Other than that, it's just straight Atlanta tap water. And then we get super sacks of instant ocean. Each of these are a ton, and they make about 7,500 gallons or so of salt water. So we went in the shallow end, and we got propeller pumps that are used to keep boats from icing over in the winter. We put those underneath where we're going to drop the super sacks down. We'd run them out on a hoist and just slice them on the bottoms as they went out, and then just pour the salt directly in, and they were mixing from below. So we do this and then repeated 140 times, something like that. So yeah, that's what it goes into cycling or salting a 1 million gallon exhibit. We also built out a transport truck. So that's a full-length semi-trailer with the pool on the end for the animals, and then the front end is where all the LSS equipment is. And that we've been able to run cross-country doing transports with that, with bringing different animals around. So then I have Aquatic Life Designs as my company. We're based in Atlanta. We do a lot of work with like corporate headquarters that want to display tank. Been doing a lot with TV and movie industry. And then we have a number of usually more wealthy individuals that have residential aquariums. So we've got Lego Masters we've done a number of episodes with. This is the tank on the side is a bowling alley at a wedding venue. It's 1,000-gallon fish only, artificial reef aquarium. And then this is a tank that was set up as a fish-only aquarium, and we changed it to be a moon jelly aquarium. And this is a private residence in Atlanta. It's been a really cool tank. It's been running for about 3 or 4 years now. But there's kind of two parts to the company that I have. All the staff that works for me are aquarists at Georgia Aquarium, and then they work for me on their days off or after work. So they're going off and doing the maintenance around town, and then I make sure that they have everything they need, and then I do consulting on public facilities and just other aquarium projects kind of anywhere around the world. So I did spend time over in Saudi Arabia setting up the Center for Marine and Ocean Research on the Red Sea. Was there for 4 months in 2013. In 2014, I spent 3 months over at Chimlong Ocean Kingdom, which is now the world's largest aquarium. It's running about 12 million gallons, I think. And that I was there for the startup of all the exhibits. Opening day was my last day. So I got everything running and then came back to Atlanta. And then just kind of final thought is to kind of encourage your kids to go nuts with their passions, because you never know what's going to bring them.